Hi, everybody. Thanks all for joining us. So we have two entrepreneurs on the stage today, and I'd love to introduce Omar and myself, and this is going to be our session. So Omar, do you want to just say a couple words?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We're excited to share our story with you. My name is Omar, and I'm co-founder of Goose Insurance, also Smart Money Insurance here in the United States, and I'll talk about that a little bit, and also look after growth. So yeah, looking forward to sharing our story and answering any questions you may have.
Yeah, and Omar is coming all the way from Vancouver, right, to join us?
Yes, it's not quite all the way, but it's an hour and 45 minutes flight. But when you're dealing with North American Airlines, then there's an expected few hours of delay and an hour on tarmac. So it's a good 6-hour journey, but glad to be here.
Yeah. Cool. And I'm Momchil. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer at CleverTap. So Omar has been a customer of ours and at CleverTap. And prior to this, I mentioned I'm an entrepreneur. So I was the co-founder of LeanPlum. And LeanPlum got acquired by CleverTap a couple of years ago. And so essentially my team, the LeanPlum team, is now the CleverTap North America Europe team. So if any of you have heard of LeanPlum, that's kind of the story a little bit, but yeah, so today we're going to talk about Omar. He's our star of the show. And so I'd love to tell you more about us as just background, and then we're going to dive right into Goose Insurance. So CleverTap, it's we have a pretty interesting value proposition. So CleverTap is an all-in-one user engagement platform. And as I mentioned, LeanPlum was acquired by CleverTap. One of the reasons was because CleverTap is really got a kind of the market leader presence in the rest of the world. Like if you go to Asia, especially Southeast Asia and the Middle East, Latin America, a lot of the emerging markets that are app-centric, the CleverTap is the market leader when it comes to user engagement, retention, analytics. For whatever reasons, the founders of CleverTap, they never quite entered the US market, but a couple of years ago, they realized it's obviously a really good, very important market, and so they didn't want to just go in and start from scratch. They acquired LeanPlum, and LeanPlum was established in the US. We're San Francisco based. I'm San Francisco based. So we've had many years, worked with many clients. So this is kind of the story. But what's really cool about the CleverTap product is it's kind of like an all-in-one product. So you can think of it as like, obviously the messaging and the analytics kind of coming together, right? And the reason it works really well, and we'll get into this with Omar, is a lot of times when you're trying to optimize retention and trying to optimize cross-sells, you're kind of constantly going back and forth between the analytics and the engagement. Maybe want to build a journey, build a push notification, campaign or whatever. You kind of want to find first the interesting pockets of segments of users you want to go and target, and then it's very natural for you to then go in and analyze and essentially optimize. But you always start with the analytics. So having it two together actually makes a lot of sense. So this is on us. We have a lot of customers all throughout the world, a lot of subscription apps. We're very big on fintech, a lot of travel insurance. We have actually quite a few insurance companies globally, and Goose Insurance is one of our customers here in the North American market. I'll let Omar tell you more about what Goose Insurance does.
Yeah, absolutely. So Goose Insurance, as I said, so we have two different brands. We have Goose Insurance that operates in Canada, and then we also have Smart Money Insurance that operates here in 31 states in the US. We started Goose, really, I don't come from an insurance background. I don't think anybody necessarily wakes up and says, when I grow up, I want to be insurance, but it is something that's very fascinating. I come from a mobile background. I've spent most of my life, 18 plus years in mobile and tech, and a little bit of SaaS as well. And we really looked at this sort of opportunity to give power back in the hands of consumers when it comes to buying insurance. If you can hail a ride, order your favorite sushi from your favorite, app, shop all through a mobile phone, why can't you buy insurance? So today I'm really proud to say that, after many years of hard work on these apps, you could buy up to $1 million or $1.5 million of term life insurance for 25 to 30 years, or even whole life insurance on the app within 5 to 7 minutes. And there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background in terms of, MIB data dips and RX and so on and so forth. And we have actually been able to build this digital distribution where you don't need an agent and broker, which is typically what people go to buy insurance policies, and they could do it literally in the app. You could buy a renter's policy on the Smart Bunny app here in California in less than a minute. And when you think about sort of the problems that solves when somebody can't get the keys to their apartment because their property manager or their homeowner needs a certificate of insurance to give them the keys and they forgot about it, this is the moment where we actually shine and we can deliver on that promise. So Goose is a complete brand, and Smart Bunny. We're not a broker site. We're not a comparison site. We actually build our own policies. We acquire our own customers. We nurture them, utilizing obviously our platform like a CleverTap that we use on for both of these brands, and we actually sell them the policy. We fulfill the policy. We do the collection of premium, the payment, everything that we do. The only thing that our brands don't do or our company doesn't do is we don't touch claims. That's not our expertise. That's not our forte. We work with a claims administrator that the actual insurance company appoints, and we work with directly. So that's kind of what Goose is all about. We are close to 150,000 plus and counting, close to 200,000 members strong in both of the countries. We have significant growth plans here in the United States. We started literally on a kitchen table back in 2018, and here we are. So yeah, that's a little bit about Goose and Smart Bunny.
So I have a question. So you guys have two separate brands. How did you come up with the Smart Bunny brand?
That's a good question. So we actually started initially launching in the US during COVID, because it was perfect timing here in the US under the brand Goose. And very quickly we learned that perhaps that was not the right strategy. Goose is a very Canadian thing. It resonates more, although fun fact, there's a goose in every single country. The bird goose exists in every single country, but it is tied to the Canadian snowbirds. As you guys know, we don't live in an igloo. We do not, but it does get cold in the winter, and a lot of Canadian snowbirds do leave the country for the few months to come to California, Florida, so on and so forth. Smart Bunny, on the other hand, we were looking at different brands that could be resonated. We didn't want to be called American Life Family of so and so and so. We didn't want to be blue. We wanted to be sort of a fun brand that people can recognize with. It was a lot of search. It took us, months and months and months. But after coming up, and also a lot of brands are registered and trademarked, so that's also another issue. But after working with consumers, doing surveys and so on and so forth, we ended up with Smart Bunny. It was just one of the ideas that was thrown. And, we also wanted to be within the zoo theme, like animal theme. So, yeah.
So pick an animal and a brand that's not claimed. I love that. Very cool. And I think you have a slide here just to kind of walk people through what the app does, because you did mention it's like 5 to 7 minutes. So do you want to walk us through this?
Yeah,
real quick?
This is just a simple sort of user flow in terms of somebody actually buying insurance. In this particular case, they're buying travel insurance. We offer them in the app, the opportunity for them to actually buy an AD&D or accidental death policy as well, which is a completely different provider. We do have a shopping experience as well, where we're trying to cross-sell and give people the opportunity to buy additional coverages as well within the app. And literally, this is how simple it is to buy insurance on the Goose or Smart Bunny app today.
That's awesome. So you mentioned snowbirds. I'm just curious, who's your target customer? I'm assuming snowbirds are actually somebody you target, because if you travel abroad, you kind of want to get insurance.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about insurance and app or anything app, unfortunately, hopefully not anymore, but people think that, is that for millennials or Gen Zs or whatever younger? No, 35% plus, 38% of our demographic is actually 60 plus. They are tech savvy. They're tech first. They love using their iPads and iPhones and different tablets. Their font size might be bigger, and your app you need to make sure that scalability works very, very well on the devices for your app. But they do buy insurance and they buy big policies. Some of our policies, the largest policies that we have sold to a Canadian snowboard has been $17,000. And they will buy it on their credit card directly on the app without having to talk to anybody. Fun fact, 91% of our transactions are completely self-serve. So we do have licensed agents across US and Canada who are employees. They're not agents or brokers. They don't work for themselves. They're not commission-based. They're employees of Goose that provide customer service and support. But some of them call, but 91% of our transactions are completely self-serve.
And self-serve meaning app, right?
They're just the app. We don't have we don't have a web presence. We don't have a mobile web presence. You have to download the Goose Insurance app or Smart Bunny app, and 91% of them directly start, finish, buy a policy on the app directly.
Is Apple taking a cut of that then?
I'm sorry?
Is Apple taking the 15 or 30%?
No, Apple doesn't. So Apple, under the regulatory laws globally, they cannot touch any transaction pertaining to finance, insurance, or any of that category. So if you're in mobile gaming, obviously, or retail and so on and so forth, then yes. Otherwise, they're not. It's against the regulatory guidelines.
Yeah, I guess it's a digital purchase in this case, but it's actually like more like a traditional kind of service that's being provided even outside of the app. So it's kind of I guess it's nice that there is regulation that specifically calls out.
Absolutely, because you have to be licensed. You have to, obviously, in every single jurisdiction that you operate in, and you are regulated. And Apple is not. So unless Apple goes and becomes an insurance agency and gets the appropriate licensing and meets the requirements, then potentially they can look at it. But neither Google or Apple does that today.
Yeah. So speaking of that, actually, you brought up a good topic about that I wanted to ask about. How do you guys make money? Like in terms of, is it more transactional, more subscription based? Because I can imagine you can do both.
Yeah, so it's a great question, because for people who are not in insurance, or you're in gaming or in sort of subscription-based businesses, so we do have both. Because when you're buying a term life policy for 25 years, for example, you're essentially opting into a subscription for the next 25 years that you're going to pay monthly. And our transaction business would be like, hey, I'm going to be going to Europe, or I'm going to Bulgaria for a few days, and I need to quickly buy a travel medical insurance, because a lot of people don't know this, but as soon as you leave your health network or your home state, you don't have any medical coverage, and you can quickly literally buy it on the app. So that's the transaction piece, because it's ad hoc, you need it. How we make money is we actually take a percentage of the policies that we sell, but our business model is different than a traditional agency, because we actually work something called level comp. We want to keep that customer. We want to retain that customer. The longer that customer actually stays with us and pays their monthly premium, that's how we make money, and we make a small cut of that. And because we are not a comparison site and or a brokerage firm, and we sell one policy per product line, we can actually get compensated fairly well for that.
Yeah. So would you say it's like primarily transactional and subscription secondary, or like is it 50-50? Like what's the kind of the split?
It's dependent on every single market. In the US, we're primarily subscription based. In the US, in Canada, we're more so transactional based. But here's an important thing, and this is why sort of messaging and utilizing sort of a proper nurture really helps. 60% of our transactional customer base comes in and makes at least one other purchase, if not more. So yes, we can call it transaction business, but it is a repeat business, because you can actually nurture them. Key events. So for example, if somebody traveled the same time last year and hasn't done anything since then, we can send them a reminder and saying, hey, remember Momchil, your fantastic travel last year? What are your plans this year? So nudge them appropriately. And so we roughly about 60% of our customer base who buy transaction or buy one policy come back and buy again.
I mean, your business runs on retention essentially, right? Because even on the transactional side, you need to make sure that you capture that next year travel. And especially for the plans that are recurring monthly and so on.
Yeah, and this is important. This is why a mobile app is critical, because if you're competing with most of these other, I'm going to call them quote unquote digital insurance distributors on the web, they don't have any personal information about these users. They don't know anything, because with Goose, we're doing it the hard way, or Smart Bunny. But when you download the app, you have to give us 5 pieces of information. So your first name, last name, date of birth, location, physical address, and email address. And that information allows us to right away know what you're eligible to purchase for in terms of products and what jurisdiction you're in, because that way then we can also meet the regulatory requirements. But that also gives us enough information to put you in a proper nurture funnel through a journey, for example, or proper onboarding outside of what happens in the app to educate you about the different insurance products.
Yeah, so going back to our topic for the day, which is cross sells and specifically personalization, that's your edge essentially, because you have a direct-to-consumer connection. You know more about them, you know their behavior for the past few years, so you can actually leverage all that to get a leg up against anybody else who doesn't have that first-party data, right?
Yeah, exactly. And for us, the journeys that we run on CleverTap, or, the nurture campaigns, it's all utilizing and focusing on personalization, the ability for us to know, obviously, basics, which, like their name and all that stuff, but also we can actually send them an email using CleverTap's liquid tags and say, okay, well, this was your quote, that for X amount of dollars, you can get this coverage, and actually literally go back and pull them. And then we do use deep linking as well with CleverTap as well, which actually allows us to drop them back into the shopping cart experience directly on the quote page that they could actually make their purchase. So it's a powerful methodology for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good leeway into our next topic, which is essentially, I think we covered most of this actually, the multi-channel customer acquisition. On the cross-sell, cross-sell is just one of the many things. Before we get into cross-sell, I was just curious, with personalization, there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can personalize based on behavior, past behavior. You can personalize based on current in-session behavior, knowing kind of what people are trying to do and kind of nudging them along the way. You can personalize based on demographic information, knowing specifics about, maybe a country or state or age, gender, and all these things. Which of these do you use? Like, what really moves the needle for you, high level?
I think, some of them we have to do it because we are in a regulated industry. So, the message that you send, for example, in the state of California is completely different than you send in Florida. So having geographic personalization is important, and segmenting customers accordingly is super important. The one that really moves the needle for us is actually using the event-based personalization, because the basics of the demographic or the age and their name, calling them by their name is important, but also utilizing sort of like I said before, if somebody has done a quote, giving them back the exact quote ID, like making it as personal as possible, utilizing the dollar values that are attached to it, reminding them how cheap it is, reminding them how affordable it is. And in some of our products, we are very affordable. We compete 40% less because we're a digital distributor and we don't have the overhead of agents and expenses that perhaps other insurance companies have. We can actually pass that along. So reminding them that consistently, especially of price and coverage and that value analysis, is the one that actually moves the needle for us as well. We have a shopping cart in the app, like I showed before, for cross-sell, but sometimes people don't know. A lot of people, even in the room, probably don't know what AD&D coverage is. So then taking that outside of the transaction and educating them that event that kind of happens. So it's a little bit of a live behavior thing that we use for journeys and nodes. Some of our journeys are, and CleverTap is for 60 days plus, but it's actually using past behavior. So for example, this person bought a policy for travel insurance, the specifics of the coverage, because we have custom properties, for example, with CleverTap, but then utilizing that messaging and reminding them what accidental death is, why is it beneficial to you, why do you need to buy it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, we actually we had a fun study we did about a year ago where we measured across all of our customer base personalization based on static demographic information versus behavioral, and we actually were able to see a 2x increase. We were able to tie that back to revenue for the customers that we do have that, and we found that you generate 2 times more revenue per message sent if you personalize based on behavior, right? And kind of that was an interesting stat because intuitively it makes sense. I think the classic example in our space is always like, if you're buying, some women's product in the store, you may be a woman or you could be the husband who's buying a present for their wife, right? And so both of these, it doesn't actually matter who you are. What matters is what you're trying to do in that very moment. In that context, behavior is actually way more powerful. I can imagine for you guys, if you have a travel insurance booked, you know a lot of things about this person, and you have a lot of opportunities before and after, right? I know the travel date. I can do things before. I can do things after. I can do things during. How much do you use that? And maybe some good examples that you can share.
Yeah, so travel is probably one of the simplest ones that I would say that we utilize and we'll rely on CleverTap. So when somebody actually buys a policy, we know that their effective date of the policy and their return home. So we do send them a message after we fulfill the policy, which we have to do by regulatory requirements. And then we send them, a message, have a nice journey, enjoy. We actually send them a message that actually says, gives them quick little snippet of where in the app they can actually find claims and emergency, because insurance is only good until you need it and it's there for you. So it's really important, and we do want people to utilize the insurance that they've purchased. So giving them, hey, make sure this is claims and emergencies there, 24-hour claims, 911 equivalent, for example. 911 is just in North America if you need an ambulance service, for example, but it doesn't work. The 911 equivalent doesn't work, so we have that in the app, map of local hospitals, so on and so forth. So we send them those reminders. We actually do another check-in while they're on their trip, and we have different messaging if they're on a 7-day trip, 14-day trip, 30-day trip, because we have that duration. And then we also send them a message when they come home, welcome home, and we ask them for a review. How was it? Did you make a claim? All of that. This is all coming on the travel side. On the life insurance side, one of the things that we've actually started doing is we know who the beneficiaries are, right? So if you buy a policy and your beneficiaries are your children, we have a kids insurance product for $60 a year, $5 a month. We can actually send you a message saying, hey, did you know that you can cover Jonathan for as low as $5 a month for the kids insurance policy? And this is what it provides you. And this is great because this has critical illness coverage. It has travel accidents. So a lot of kids who are in sports, it's a fantastic thing because if you need, braces, or if you break your glasses, so on and so forth, in any accidental event, you have full coverage for it. So it allows us to actually go deeper and drive that cross-sell, but with a strong lens of personalization.
So really, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of attach upsells and cross-sells depending on the context. And it's all about fine-tuning, and I'm assuming a lot of testing goes into it, a lot of analysis, analytics, and things like that.
Yeah, so we actually do a lot of A/B testing in terms of the messaging, but also on the messaging channel that we use, whether we're using SMS, whether we're using email. So we do very different A/B testing, different variants. Also, our app is multi-language. For example, in Canada, we have a variant in French and we have a variant in English of the email campaigns that are running, and we're constantly looking at it. And the beauty of it is the fact that you can actually get analysis right away. So, for example, if your number one driver is revenue, right, and you put that as a target on your journey, literally, or a campaign or email, you can go in and see exactly what was the performance conversion, and you're sharing. If you can share your dollar, your charged, for example, events, dollar value or amount, you know exactly how much dollars this email campaign or this one singular email, let alone an entire journey, has driven your business. So you could do impact calculation very, very quickly. And that was one of the reasons why we actually went with CleverTap, and we've been with CleverTap for a number of years. So funny story, I think I've shared this with you. We were looking at Lean Plum and CleverTap at the exact same time, and we were very close to even going with CleverTap, but then the team, Lean Plum, but the team decided CleverTap, and then 2 weeks later we got the announcement. So now we have
You ended up getting both.
Yeah.
That's fun. So speaking of that, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what was life before CleverTap. What were you guys looking for specifically, and how did you end up kind of choosing CleverTap?
Yeah, we were with another provider before. The platform was good. It was okay. It was doing its job, but I think one of the things that we needed being a small startup. We're not a big organization. So we needed some help and some support and people that we could lean on. And, the biggest strength that CleverTap has outside of its platform being an all-in-one platform that has not necessarily just your cross-channel messaging, but also your analytics, which is very, very important to us because we feed all our data. So it kind of operates we have our sole proprietary CRM system that we've built because we have to, because we have our pricing matrix and so on and so forth. But CleverTap is that tool that, our entire growth organization uses to see. It's kind of like a layer of CRM, a view into our customers and all the activities that they do. So that's very powerful, aside from the messaging piece that I mentioned. But the one thing that we love is the fact that the people are so reachable. So we have, for example, we have a bi-weekly with our CSM team. We have a Slack channel with our CSM team that we can actually just send them a message right away because we do need hand-holding and we don't have the resources or sometimes even the mind frame to figure something out. And sometimes it's a lot easier to just reach out to your CSM and just get that quick answer. Or sometimes you forget how you went and did something before and you can't remember. You're like, hey, Manish is our CSM. Hey, Manish, how can I do this? And very quickly he responds on the Slack channel. So I think people is definitely the strength, and that has made life a lot easier because we don't have to use all our internal resources spending 4 hours trying to figure out how I did this segment versus we can just simply send a quick question over Slack and get the answer.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate sharing that. And I do think it matters because for us, this size of apps and companies is actually a focus area for us. We believe the all-in-one solution is kind of good for all sizes of companies. In fact, if you look at worldwide, we work with 3 of the 5 biggest banks in India and one of the top 10 biggest banks in the US. But for we call it the medium-sized businesses, the all-in-one aspect actually matters because you guys don't have a whole team to stitch together 3 or 4 different solutions, maybe an analytics solution, like an A/B testing solution, a CRM. So putting it all together, it's not just a total cost of ownership thing. It actually helps you with efficiency, being able to find an interesting, pocket of users in the funnel and then jump right in, build a segment and, journey right there, and that helps. So I think that's kind of our value proposition. That's how we build the product. So it's always good to see that, it's resonating for the segment that we're targeting, which is kind of like you guys, right? And so thank you for sharing that. And so you went with CleverTap, and so you guys have been using us for a while. And so let's maybe switch a little bit about and talk about this the cross sell, right? So cross sell, I believe when you started with CleverTap, you guys had about 7% cross-sell rate, and now you are at about 30%. So tell us what kind of things worked, maybe some things that didn't work, interesting things that you've been able to figure out, A/B test or analyze. How did you go about actually getting such a great result, which really moves the needle? These cross-sells are revenue at the end of the day. So,
yeah, at first it was just, for us, We've tried different things. We're very focused on A/B testing all the time, trying to learn. Some of the things that didn't work at the beginning, we thought that if somebody bought something, they would automatically be interested in buying another product. It's a wrong assumption. It's a young. When I say young, I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about the age of the company. It's a young entrepreneur problem, right? They're like, oh, they bought this and now they're going to buy this, right? It doesn't quite work like that. So the one thing that we found over A/B testing and figuring out is how important content and education is and how you deliver that education and what's the right moment for that. So that's been the biggest learning because we have had a lot of failures. I can tell you something that we're struggling with right now. We actually launched phone insurance in the US. So we're competing directly with folks like AppleCare and so on and so forth, but we actually have an insurance product that we've built with a global insurance company called Zurich, where it actually covers you for mechanical damage, loss and theft. It's an actual insurance product. So we're actually trying cross-sell right now on our renters policy holders, and it's not quite working because we thought, if somebody who's paying $22 to $25 a month for their renters policy, I'm sure they'll pay, $9 to cover for their iPhone and $14 to cover for their new iPhone 16 a month, and it's not working. So that's kind of a real struggle as to we're trying to figure out, and I don't know why, and it could be a messaging, it could be a timing thing. But for the most part, where we actually saw the optics of why it started to work when we actually focused on content, particularly when it comes to the value of the premium that you pay, and sorry, the value of what you get versus the premium that you get that you pay, and pertaining to health, protecting your family, and so on and so forth. That's where we start to see the uptick. And after multiple tries, I think in here in the slides we have some stats of how many journeys and how many emails do we have going on at any given time. It was just switching on the content, utilizing different layers of personalization to be able to get that result.
Yeah, I mean, this is the slide you're referring to. 97 campaigns, 27 always on journeys. I'm assuming a lot of nodes, probably into the dozens. A lot of branching.
Every single journey has multiple nodes on them, so it just there's a ton of them attached. So I'm not quite sure what that number is, but that's a real snapshot of what we have going on right now.
Yeah. What is the most upsold or cross-sold product?
Funny enough, it's accidental death and dismemberment, and nobody knows what that is. Nobody knows what that AD&D is but it's because it's $5 and you get $50,000 of coverage. It's right away, and it's our number one seller on our travel policy.
And I think you mentioned some stat which was pretty interesting, that about half the country does not buy life insurance. Is that right?
Yeah, so 54% of Americans actually, we don't have adequate life insurance coverage. So there's a huge underinsurance problem in North America, in both US and Canada, that we're facing, primarily in the US because the hyper focus on health and auto. People are forgetting about critical illness. They're forgetting about life insurance and a few other products as well. So education is a huge component of this.
And what are some good strategies for education? Do you have like a newsletter you're running, or is it more contextual, personalized? Like, how do you do it?
So we have some plans for education that we're going to be launching. So very soon we're going to be launching video within the app as well as utilizing video-based content within our email nurtures as well. Newsletters do work. Again, you have to utilize personalization and know your audience, exactly how you deliver it. So when we do send a long form newsletter or an educational content that is text-based to our 65 or 60 plus demographic, we have upwards of 70% open rate and like 30% click-through rate. So really good top of the funnel metrics that helps us manage our domain reputation. But obviously we're using the same content to a younger demographic. It's just a colossal fail. So we are looking at utilizing video to deliver these educational, and we're actually building an academy within the app as well, where people can actually go and get educated on different types of content and introduce them. Because when you even buy life insurance, or if you buy any kind of other insurance and you don't know about it, there's a splash screen today in the app that tells you about it, and we dynamically test and change the messaging on that. But launching video, because we do live in a world of consuming content in 10 to 15 seconds, it just helps us. So that's our next steps.
Content just gives you immediately another way to engage, or a reason to engage. And you can distribute this content in a lot of different ways, bite-sized or other means. So I completely agree. Because even subscription, but in transactional, there's only so many touch points that you can leverage or trigger points. But with content, you just get unlimited, right? Because you can just generate new videos and add value that way. That makes sense. And you have quite a bit of channels. I'm assuming that also reflects on some of the demographics you've got. And curious if you've done any interesting tests, or kind of how you kind of distribute across these channels. Like, do you see any uplift from using multiple channels all at once? Just anything you can comment on that.
Yeah, we definitely see an uplift. I think one of the ones that has the campaigns or the journeys that we have is the don't forget to buy travel insurance. So these are the people who actually come in, get a quote, give us all the information, and then they say, okay, I'm going to do it later. So for example, in Canada, over 50% of Canadians actually forget to buy travel insurance. It's not because they don't know it. We're the most insurance-friendly country probably out there, I would say. But people just forget because when they're traveling, they've got so much going on. They're excited, so on and so forth. They forget. So we actually use a multi-channel approach in terms of how we message them. But we use SMS on the very last day before they go, so 24 hours prior to. And that in itself has over like 30% conversion rate for people to actually buy. And SMS is a very tricky channel because of all the spamming that's going on and how you could actually get, flagged potentially for spam and how you drip that. It's super important to set up for it, and how frequently you send it, and how that relates to your global thresholds for the messaging. But it is a very, very effective channel. We have also then used SMS for some of our other campaigns, and we have actually backfired on us where, our reputation was compromised. We had to get new numbers and so on and so forth. So using it the right way works. And in this particular case, it does.
Yeah, and one of the things that we're kind of investing actually quite a bit on is sometimes you don't really know what channel is going to convert or what kind of journey. So we do have also the ability to set up what we call IntelliNode, or essentially AI routed branches in your journeys. And you mentioned, you optimize for conversion or you optimize for an end goal in your journeys, but you can also let the machine optimize for you and maybe route like an email to the email people, or push notification, an SMS to the people most likely to engage there, and let the algorithm kind of figure that out. So a lot of these things matter, especially now in the age of AI. I think we can leverage more and more of that to help basically minimize some of these ways that you could backfire on you if you kind of fine tuning by hand, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing also we're trying to understand, especially for some of our demographics coming in, we do live in a multicultural world and people do travel to different parts of the world and they're from different parts of the world. So we are looking at integrating, and utilizing WhatsApp, WeChat, and a few others to be able to connect people in a meaningful way as well, especially while you're outside of the country and you don't have cell reception, but you're relying on Wi-Fi and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the next step for us, as well as channel integration.
Yeah, I mean it's fascinating because I was actually just traveling. We had a executive summit in India just a few weeks ago, and I booked a ticket on Air India, and I got the confirmation on WhatsApp. So that's just how it works. In some countries, that's a very legit channel. In the US, sometimes we forget because it's not really a thing. But if you have an international audience, you kind of have to think about this. And in your case, you're absolutely right. Like, people do travel to the US from all over the world. And so having that access to a channel that you can leverage, even if it's a small percentage of your audience, it could actually make a big impact. That's definitely one of the channels we have in our mix for that very reason. Obviously more used in Asia, I'd say, Latin America, but even in the US, we're actually starting to see more and more demand for brands that cater to international audiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe, just wrapping up here, Omar, just what is it? What are you guys looking forward to in the future? Like, what's next? Like, any interesting plans to, focus on other areas of the app, or app functionality, or even just areas that you want to optimize? I'm just curious if you can share.
Yeah, so our next immediate plan is obviously integrating a video into the app, and talked about it from an education perspective, but also utilizing video across different channels, including our messaging that we send out. So that's kind of an immediate thing. We're always looking for product expansion. Our vision is to be an insurance super app. We may not necessarily have an insurance policy for every single person that is looking, but we want to be that first storefront on a device that the user has to go and check for whatever insurance they may need. So we want to be that first stop shop. So product expansion is our core focus, alongside our growth and user acquisition. And then the next layer to that is definitely for us kind of looking at geographic expansion, because we've built a multi-language app that can be easily implemented anywhere in the world. So that's kind of where the vision is right now.
Yeah, that's super exciting, and wish you guys all the best, and rooting for you, and we'd love to be continue to be part of that journey. Very exciting.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah. If you guys have any questions, Omar is around. I'm also around. Yeah, Tanuj. We know each other.
How do you make the most use of your CleverTap investment? It's a very powerful tool. I've seen the demos. Do you have a dedicated person who's doing pushes and campaigns and defining journeys and everything else? Because I'm struggling a little bit with that. We've invested in an engagement platform, and I love it. I'm a product engineering guy. I love the platform, but it's not used enough.
Yeah, that's a really good question. From our perspective, obviously, the platform is not going to do everything and anything you want. You kind of have to make an investment, right, in it. And I think for us, the key to our success using CleverTap and also some of the other platforms that we use as part of our MarTech stack is obviously making that initial investment. With CleverTap particularly, you kind of have to build the basics, a skeleton, let it run for a little while, and then go back. It's not something that you necessarily need to be in every single day to make tweak, because you're not going to see the impact of that. Like, for example, if you're doing a nurture journey or an onboarding journey for 30 days, you just have to set it up initially, kind of figure out your basics of A/B testing, give it 2 weeks, go back, look at the results, optimize, and kind of go on. That's what helps with us. Also, we do work with our CSM. The number one thing is to making sure that your CSM knows your business model inside out. It's super important because they're part of your team. So if they don't know your business model, they don't know what you're trying to do, they're not going to be helpful. And it's not their fault, it's a disservice to you. So for us, we actually invest quite a bit in our CSM and educating them. They're probably going to turn into an insurance guru at one point, but it's important because that way then he can tell us, we were running some journeys wrong, and our CSM was said, well, if you combine these two journeys into one, you're going to get a much better result in view. That's a simple example, but that's really important. But you do have to make a little bit of an investment. I don't have a dedicated person. Our growth marketing manager does oversee it. We have a couple of people. The other thing is also we are a very flat organization. If you have an idea, all you have to do is post it on Slack or put your hand up on stand up and it'll get done. I mean, given the reasonably thought, right? If it's a good idea, we'll just do it. Doesn't matter who you are. So that's how we run it, and it works pretty fine for us. And we're a very small team. We don't have, so.
Most of these journeys and campaigns are set up ahead of time and you have a roadmap, or are a lot of these notifications reactive?
Well, some of them is basic. So for example, the most basic thing is that somebody attempts to sign up for Goose or Smart Bunny, but then they don't complete it. So that's just the very top of the funnel. They've invested in installing the app. They have initiated a sign up to become a member for Goose, but they haven't completed. So what does that journey look like for you to kind of take them to completion? And you kind of give your first guesses. I want to do a 7-day follow-up. I want to do a 30-day follow-up. I want to do a 14-day follow-up. What does that look like? And I think if I'm not being mistaken, CleverTap also has some studies in their academy and some guides in terms of for you to use what are some best practices depending on different verticals. So for insurance, for example, a 28-day, this is just an example, 28-day follow-up for an incomplete sign-up might be a good idea to start. And then you can kind of learn from it from there. So you kind of have to start from there as the very basics.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have 3 questions. The first is in terms of the event-based. How much of the success of the event-based is based on the timeliness of the cross-selling versus the event itself? It's at the moment of shopping, so that's why that personalization works. Most of the lift comes from.
So how important is recency when it comes to, or real-time aspect, the real-time aspect when it comes to cross-sells?
Yeah, that's, we'll wrap up. It's a good question. It really depends on the vertical that you are. For us, it depends on the product. If you're there buying whole life insurance and you're invested in answering 27 health questions, you are there, you're the time. So having live behavior follow-ups is the most critical thing. If you're shopping for travel insurance and if you're a Canadian snowbird and you're not leaving till February of 2025, I've got time. So that's a past behavior thing. So utilizing not just the behavioral context to follow up and personalize, but using the event and what is it for and building follow-ups from there is important.
From a business perspective, how do you manage, do you guys have multiple product managers who are with the same cross-selling parking spot, and how do you manage conflict across people customer and database?
No, so our growth team is responsible for acquisition, retention, and sales. We look at full funnel. We don't have multiple product managers because we do not want to be bombarding our customers with multiple offers. Everybody owns the customer, but the customer is one, and we have to prioritize on the business what we want to push for.
Awesome. Thank you again, everybody. And if you have more questions, we'll be in the back, just outside.